Yeah, I mean, essentially, I just finished Star Wars and I needed a break, and I wasn't expecting to be thinking about the next film at all. And we ended up with my girlfriend driving to visit her family across America, and she lives in Iowa, so it's like a 4-day trip through like amazing landscapes. And I put some music on. I was just looking out the window, and we were passing all this like farmland and tall grass fields, and then there was this like factory in the middle of nowhere, and I remember it having like a Japanese logo or something, and I just thought, I wonder what they're building in there. And then in my head I was like, because I love science fiction, I was like, maybe it was robots or something. Obviously it wasn't, but I started thinking, what if you were a robot built in a factory, and you'd never, you were born in this room in this factory line, and then you, for some reason, something happened and you stepped outside for the first time and you saw the grass and the sky. Like, what would you think, was going on? What would you think of the world? And I thought it was a really nice little moment, like a scene from a movie, but not any movie I would ever make. And so I kind of threw it away. And then suddenly had another idea, like, oh, I know what could be happening. Maybe the robot escaped because of this reason. And suddenly all these ideas started forming. And very quickly, the idea for the movie came together. And normally it would take, it can take months, if not years, to figure out film. And it came, by the time we got to her parents' house, I had the whole movie kind of pretty, simply worked out in my head. And that's very rare. And so I was like, oh, maybe there's something in this. Like maybe maybe that I could, should pursue this for my next film. I really didn't want to do this movie in a studio against green screen. So we managed to talk the studio into letting us go to, into the real world to shoot real locations. We went to 8 different countries. We went to Nepal, Cambodia, Tokyo, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and shot in all these, like basically the best locations in the world. We found that if you could make the crew small enough, then the cost of flying anywhere in the world becomes cheaper than building a set, against green screen or something. So suddenly we were allowed to go wherever we wanted. And it was kind of amazing. The biggest problem was with all the traveling. We traveled 10,000 miles. It was kind of exhausting as well. And it was 6 months of filming, and it was just like far too long to make a movie with. But every time we stood somewhere and we're on like the beaches of Thailand or some paddy fields like in Indonesia, you get so excited about what you're seeing and how beautiful it looks. Like all that exhaustion just goes away. And we also were doing it, as we started planning the movie, the pandemic came along, and it was like, oh no, here we go. We're not going to be able to make this film now. And like everybody in the world, this terrible thing happened, and a year and a half went by. But then we were the first people into these countries after the rules changed, and we could go over there and film. And the great thing about that is there was no tourists. So we ended up in all these amazing locations. We were kind of like the first ones in. So life was carrying on. People were really happy to see, Westerners again and tourists, but people, stopped wearing masks and were like happy to be out, and kids playing in the street. And so we thought it was really, like, it was very important to me that as a Hollywood film, we didn't come into these villages and environments and like block off the street and push all these people out. Like the best thing about these locations are all the faces and all the crazy randomness, like the little, farm animals and livestock that just run across the street in the middle of a shot and things like this. And so we got very small, and the crew hid out the way, and it allowed us to film with all these amazing actors in these real locations, but kind of keep the village life and the real world flowing through. And then we added, like with Industrial Light and Magic, we managed to add all the science fiction on top. And I think the result is, you get a much more rich, believable, like random world that you don't really see in big epic sci-fi Hollywood films. I don't like films that preach at the audience. I think everyone who watches a movie where you're being force-fed, some sort of message too much, you kind of reject it. And so when you write a movie, if you sit down and go, okay, I'm going to make a film about prejudice, you're going to make a terrible movie. And so what you do is you find something that interests you. And the thing I found really interesting is this idea that you can save humanity. All you have to do, like AI is taking over the world. All you have to do to save humanity is kill this top breakthrough AI, this super AI that is the first thing and only thing that can surpass humankind. The problem is it's in the form of a 6-year-old child. And I really liked that dilemma of, could you kill a kid to save the world? And that was the original premise. And as you start writing it, about halfway through making a film, you start to realize what the movie's really about, like what the hidden meaning is. And science fiction is always a metaphor for, probably one of the best genres to have, because everything's really a metaphor for something else. And in our movie, AI and robots were kind of representing people who are different to you, like the other people that we often see as the enemy. And the idea of like, how would you feel if you were AI? And in a way, you probably feel like a slave to humans, and that we were the bad guys. And so I wanted to create a story that kind of threw a hero into that world and made them question all their preconceptions. And I think that's what science fiction is best at. It usually takes something, that's from the real world and just twists it upside down. And then suddenly everything you thought you believed, you start to not be so sure of. And I think the best kind of science fiction that's got like meat on the bone like that is, as much as it's fun to watch spaceships and explosions and robots, if there's not some sort of meaning, some deeper meaning at the heart of it, then it's all kind of pointless. And I know the films I've carried through the years that I grew up loving had this kind of significant, message at the heart of them that you kind of keep in your pocket even when you're an adult. I spent, the last film I did was Star Wars Rogue One film, and I kind of spent 7 years waiting for a film that could go on the big screen. I didn't want to do, no offense, I love TV and stuff, but I didn't want to do something for TV. I wanted to, I grew up loving cinema. And one of the things that happened when we made this film is we used these 1970s cinema lenses that, gave the film the look of films from the 70s and 80s. And when you put them on the modern camera, a strange thing happens that never used to happen before, which is it basically doubles the width of the aspect ratio, it's called, of the film. And so you end up with this really wide screen, like super, like Vista Vision type movie. And we begged the studio, please let us release it in this like crazy wide format. And they were like, no, you can't, because, films, no one releases in movies like that. And so we looked, and there was a President Quentin Tarantino had done Hateful Eight in 2.76:1, which is that crazy wide format. And like films like Ben-Hur before that. And so they let us release it in 2.76. And so that's like ultra widescreen. And so you've got to go see it on the biggest screen you can find. Like, it's a very immersive film. We shot in 8 different countries that had incredible vistas. It's designed for the big screen. There's so many details, science fiction, futuristic, crazy, random things that are in this movie. It was never made for your phone or even TV. It's like, you've got to go to the cinema and see this. I feel like, the ultimate goal of any filmmaker is, let's be honest, it's like, if you can make people tear up or cry when they watch a movie, like, there's no bigger accolade than that. And I remember as a kid, going to see E.T., excited about seeing an alien maybe and a spaceship or something, and got sucked into this relationship that made me like bawl my eyes out. And it still makes me cry now as an adult watching it. And so like that was the high benchmark of like want to do something science fiction and robots and all this, but the ultimate goal is to take the audience on this journey where they might come in with preconceptions about, you know, the kind of film they're going to see and what they think of AI and, you know, all that technology, but they get sucked in, and there's this problem. There's this kid, you know, you can win the war, you can save the world, just kill this kid. That's all you got to do. But the kid seems quite real. I kind of like the kid. You kind of like really struggle, like our central character just struggles with this relationship and how to, you know, and you want to take the audience on that journey too, where they don't know what to do either. And I think the biggest reaction we've had from the film that people weren't expecting is I took the movie up to all the visual effects artists that were working on the film. I showed them like a rough cut of the movie, and then the lights went up and everyone looked around. They're all 40-year-old men like me, and they turned around and they all had bloodshot eyes, and they were like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." And that was like probably the highest compliment I could have got, is that we managed to make grown men cry. And so yeah, so it was kind of like, you know, it was always part of the plan if we could pull it off.